My dad forgot to buy a gift for my 4-year-old kid at Christmas. Said she didn't earn it after the way she acted. All the other children received gifts, including a dog. I got her jacket and we left. At 9:20 p.m. selfish dad texted, "Don't forget the utility payment." I didn't argue, I don't understand how people can be that selfish at their age. You'd think by the time you're pushing retirement, you'd have figured out what kind of person you want to be. But this Christmas made it really clear to me, some people just never get there. We pulled up to my parents' place on Christmas Eve just after 5. The driveway was full, music was pouring out the windows, and from the outside it looked like a normal warm holiday night. Inside it was like a commercial. My sister's kids were already in the middle of unwrapping a mountain of presents. There were new tablets, video games, Bluetooth headphones, and even a tiny puppy wrapped in a red bow. I'm not kidding. They actually got a dog. My brother-in-law had it waiting in a crate in the garage as a surprise. Everyone was clapping and laughing and filming on their phones like it was a Hallmark movie. I had Savannah in my arms. She's 4. She was holding this picture she'd been working on for days. She's been really into drawing lately. Stick figures, lots of color, little hearts floating above everyone's heads. This one was a Christmas drawing of the whole family standing around a tree with the words, "Happy Together," scribbled across the top. It was sweet. It was simple. It was something a 4-year-old would be proud of. She gave it to my dad as soon as we walked in. He looked at it for maybe 2 seconds, mumbled something like, "Thanks," and walked off to refill his drink. My mom just smiled, that tight smile she uses when she's pretending to be warm. Savannah looked confused for a second, then distracted herself watching her cousins tear through boxes. I figured they were just busy, that maybe her presents were in another room. I even told her quietly that maybe Santa had saved hers for the end. But then the gift opening started. One by one names were called. My sister's kids, one after another. My sister herself got a new purse. My brother-in-law got an expensive smartwatch. Even my mom and dad exchanged gifts with each other. The dog got a bone wrapped in shiny paper. Savannah? Nothing. No name called. No box. No stocking. She sat there the whole time with her hands in her lap, smiling like she still thought something was coming. I waited, expecting someone to say, "Oh wait, we forgot one," or maybe that they were saving the best for last. But it just didn't happen. Everyone moved on. The food came out. People started talking about dinner plans. I asked quietly if they had something for Savannah. My mom looked at my dad. He said in front of everyone, she didn't earn it. Not after the way she acted last time. He was talking about a meltdown she had 2 weeks ago during a visit. She missed her nap, got overstimulated and cried. That was enough for him to decide she didn't deserve Christmas. No one reacted. No one said anything. My sister looked at her phone. My mom picked up a tray of cookies. My niece ran by laughing with a new VR headset on her face. I couldn't believe it. I walked over, grabbed Savannah's jacket and told her we were heading out. She didn't cry. She just asked if Santa maybe left her presents at home instead. In the car I kept it together for her. I told her Santa probably just hadn't made it to Grandma and Grandpa's house yet. That maybe he was saving something special for later. But when we got home I opened the trunk and sat there for a second, breathing. I kept seeing her sitting on the carpet empty-handed, watching everyone else rip into gifts with bows and batteries and laughter. Then my phone buzzed. It was 9:20 p.m. "Don't forget the utility payment." From my dad. The same man who had just let my daughter sit through Christmas with nothing while the family dog got a squeaky toy and a stocking. I didn't reply. I didn't say anything. But I made a quiet promise to myself that night. I wasn't going to play this game anymore. And the next time he needed something I was going to say no. The next morning I could still hear Savannah's voice in the back of my head. Maybe Santa left them at home instead. She had no idea. No idea her grandparents had made a conscious choice to give her absolutely nothing. Not even a stocking. Not a chocolate. Nothing. And she still gave them the benefit of the doubt. I got up early and pulled out the stash I'd hidden in the guest closet weeks ago. Gifts I was originally going to give her on Christmas morning at my parents' house. I'd wrapped them in red and silver paper with a handwritten note on each tag from Santa. There were crayons, puzzles, 2 picture books, a winter jacket with glittery snowflakes, and a set of animal puppets she'd pointed at during a trip to Target. I didn't go overboard. Just enough to make her feel like someone out there remembered her. When she saw the presents under our little tree, she gasped so loud I thought she was about to cry. I told her Santa must have dropped them off late last night, maybe while she was sleeping. She nodded like it made perfect sense. That kind of belief, where everything's still possible, is something I don't want anyone taking from her. Ever. Around 10 my phone buzzed. I didn't even have to look. I knew it was him. Sure enough, it was my dad. "Can you come by and help me fix the shed door? Blew off in the wind last night." I stared at the message for a while. Didn't make me angry, just tired. The shed was part of the second house. My house, where they'd been living rent-free for the past 3 years. It used to be a rental, but when their own home started falling apart, I stepped in because I didn't want them stressed or homeless. I handed them a key, told them it was theirs for as long as they needed it. But apparently that kind of generosity doesn't come with any guarantee of basic human decency. I texted back, "Can't today." He replied almost instantly, "Won't take long." Then a second text 10 minutes later. "Please?" He had never said please to me in a text before. That was new. I stared at it, then typed back, "Not today." No exclamation mark. No sorry. Just flat. Just final. For once, I didn't feel the need to smooth things over. A few minutes later, another text came in, this time from my mom. "Are you mad?" I didn't answer. I knew she didn't care whether I was mad. He just wanted to gauge how much trouble they were in. How long I planned to hold this over them. Then the phone rang again. Him. I let it go to voicemail, then it rang again. I finally picked up. He said he was standing outside in the cold trying to hold the shed door in place, and it would only take 20 minutes if I just came by. He even added that the wind might ruin the whole frame if it didn't get fixed soon. I said no. He paused, then laughed like I had just made a dumb joke. Not even a real laugh. More like that scoff he does when he thinks someone's being overly emotional. He said, "Seriously?" I said, "Yeah. Seriously." Then he hung up. No argument, no shouting. Just hung up like I wasn't even worth a goodbye. I looked at my phone for a second. I thought about every time I had dropped what I was doing to help them. Every time I changed plans, said yes, showed up, paid for something, stayed quiet. I realized this was the first time I had ever told him no. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to. The rest of the day was calm. Savannah played with her gifts and made up a whole story about how Santa had forgotten to stop at Grandma and Grandpa's house, but he remembered later and came to ours. She built a little stage out of couch cushions and acted the whole thing out with puppets. I just watched her and smiled. Then around noon the next day I saw his car slow roll past our house. Then again 20 minutes later. I knew what was coming. He showed up on the porch around 1 p.m. No call. No warning. Just standing there like nothing had happened. But he didn't ask to come in. Didn't even look at me. He looked right past me and asked if Savannah was home. And that's when I knew he hadn't come to apologize. He came for something else. The knock on the door came just after lunch the next day. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked out the front window and saw him standing there with his hands in his pockets, like this was just any other day. He didn't call first. Didn't text. Just showed up. I opened the door only a little. Just enough for him to know I saw him, and I wasn't planning on being polite. He didn't ask how we were. He didn't apologize. He didn't even pretend. He just asked if Savannah was home. Asked why. He said he just wanted to talk to her. That it wouldn't take long. That she needed to hear something from him. I said no. He said, "Come on, Sheila, it's not a big deal." No again. He took a step forward. I didn't move. Just held the door exactly where it was. He looked past me again and said her name like he thought she'd come running. And for some reason, maybe out of habit, maybe because I wanted to believe he came to make it right, I called to her. She came to the doorway still in her Christmas pajamas, holding one of her new puppets. When she saw him, her face lit up. She waved and said hi, and it broke my heart how easy it was for her to forget everything they didn't do for her. She told him Santa came late but brought her presents at our house. She told him how she got crayons and books and her favorite snowflake jacket. She even offered to show him the fort we built out of couch cushions. He crouched down a little and smiled, not kindly, not warmly. Just this faint, crooked smirk. Then he said, "You know why Santa didn't bring you anything to Grandma and Grandpa's, right?" She stopped. "Because you were bad. That's why. Santa skips bad kids. Everybody knows that." I saw the smile leave her face. Her hands dropped to her sides. She didn't say a word. He added, "Maybe next year if you behave you'll get something. But not this year." And then he looked up at me like he just delivered a life lesson. Like he was proud of himself. Savannah turned and walked back inside. The puppet dropped behind her. I didn't say a thing. Just stood there staring at him. Then I told him to leave. He looked surprised like he thought he'd done something noble. He said, "Sheila, don't overreact. She needs to toughen up. The world's not going to." I cut him off. I told him not to come back. Not to call. Not to text. I told him this wasn't temporary. That whatever idea he had about our relationship was over. I told him I didn't care what he needed, what was broken, what was falling apart. He was done here. He shook his head and muttered, "That girl's going to grow up weak." I closed the door. Savannah was sitting by the couch with the puppet in her lap, not playing. Just quiet. I sat down next to her and asked what was wrong. She said, "I think Santa forgot me because I was bad." It took everything in me not to break right there. I told her that Santa did leave her gifts at Grandma and Grandpa's, but they forgot to give them to her. That they'd made a mistake. That Santa had actually brought something from everyone, even from Grandpa. And that maybe they'd show up at our house soon. She looked up hopeful. Really? Yes, I said. Really? That night I drove across town. Picked up a few more toys. A pair of glittery earmuffs. A snow globe with a ballerina inside. Some socks with cartoon cats on them. I wrapped them at midnight, labeled the tags with messy handwriting from Santa, Grandma, and Grandpa. The next morning they were waiting on the doorstep when she woke up. She screamed. Not a sad scream. A happy, loud, squealing kind of scream. She kept yelling he remembered me. Grandpa remembered me. I told her I was proud of her. That she was a good kid. A great kid. And that sometimes adults mess up but Santa always sees. She didn't stop smiling for the rest of the day. But I wasn't smiling. Not even close. Because the more I watched her dance around the living room in those ridiculous socks, the more I realized something I'd never admitted to myself before. They didn't just forget her. They didn't forget me either. They never saw us at all. And I owned that house. The one they were living in. I'd given it to them out of kindness, out of guilt, out of a leftover sense of daughterly duty. And they used it like they earned it. That afternoon I got in my car, drove to that house and knocked on the door. My mother answered with a confused look. My dad was sitting on the couch watching TV like nothing had happened. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said 2 words. Start packing. The moment I said it, my mother froze in the hallway like she misheard me. I stood there not blinking. Start packing. He kept looking at me like I was speaking another language. My dad didn't even turn the volume down on the TV. Just gave me a half glance like I was being dramatic again, and he didn't have the energy. That's what always got me about him. He acted like he was above everything, even his own actions. I stepped further inside, past the old coat rack I bought back when I was 26 and naive enough to think buying your parents' furniture would somehow make them love you more. My voice was steady when I said it again. 3 days. I want this house empty. Keys on the counter. Nothing left behind. No lamps, no towels, no passive-aggressive birthday cards from years ago shoved in drawers. Nothing. My dad didn't move. My mom followed me into the kitchen, whispering like it mattered. She asked what was wrong. Was I still upset about the misunderstanding with the gift? That's what she called it. A misunderstanding. Not cruelty. Not humiliation. Not emotional damage. Just a tiny little mix-up. She asked, "Are you really kicking your parents out over a toy?" That's when I realized how far gone they were. I told her it wasn't about a toy. It was about how they treated Savannah like she was nothing. How they went out of their way to exclude her to make sure she saw it. And how my dad stood on my porch, looked her in the face and told her she was too bad to deserve love. I reminded her that I bought this house. That they were living here because I gave them the option when their own house became unlivable. No rent, no strings. And this was how they used it. She started to tear up. She always cried when logic cornered her. Then right in the middle of it, the front door opened. My sister walked in with 2 bags of groceries like this was a normal Tuesday. She stopped dead when she saw me, then rolled her eyes so hard I could practically hear it. Let me guess, more drama. I hadn't seen her since Christmas Eve. I had nothing to say to her. She didn't even look at Savannah that night. She just whispered something to her husband and laughed when we left. I told her the same thing I told them. 3 days. You all need to be out. She gave this sarcastic laugh and said, "You're not serious. You're actually kicking your own family out." Over what? A 4-year-old's tantrum? I said no. I was kicking them out over the years of insults, backhanded comments, favors returned with manipulation, silence when it counted, and cruelty wrapped in excuses. Savannah just happened to be the final line. They crossed it. Then my sister dropped it. The thing that felt like it had been waiting years to be said. "You've always been jealous. Since Dad called me the favorite. You could never stand it." My mom flinched. My dad didn't say a word. And my sister didn't even realize she'd said something ugly. She thought she was just being honest. I said, "Thanks for confirming what I've always known." She said, "You'll regret this." I said, "Maybe. But you'll be gone by Friday." Then I left. That night I got a string of texts. One from my mom trying to guilt trip me. One from my dad that just said, "Very mature." And 3 in a row from my sister that started with insults and ended with threats about lawyers and our legal rights as tenants. Like I hadn't already spoken to mine. The next morning I drove by. Their SUV was already half-packed. My sister's husband was dragging a storage bin across the driveway. My mom was on the porch folding blankets like she thought if she looked busy enough I'd change my mind. On day 2 I drove past again. The blinds were closed. Nobody waved. On day 3 they were gone. The house was quiet. Spotless, actually. They left the keys under the mat like they didn't even want to say goodbye. I walked inside and just stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the empty space where their stuff used to be. Where my dad used to sit and criticize everything. Where my mom used to hold court from the kitchen, pretending she was some benevolent matriarch. I thought I'd feel free. Light. Like something had finally lifted. Instead it was quiet. Unnaturally quiet. And then just after I put the keys on the counter and turned to leave, there was a knock at the door. I thought maybe they'd come back. Maybe my sister forgot something or my mom wanted one last word. But when I opened the door, it wasn't any of them. When I opened the door I expected yelling. Maybe my sister again, all bark and entitlement. Or my mom crying just enough to make herself look like the victim. I was ready for that. But it wasn't any of them. It was Aunt Janice. She was standing there in a winter coat zipped up to her chin, holding a brown paper grocery bag in one hand and a big blue Tupperware in the other. No expression, just a straight look like she'd been thinking about this visit for a while and finally decided to make it happen. I stepped back without saying anything. She walked in calm as ever like she'd been here yesterday. She put the Tupperware on the kitchen counter and then looked at me. She said, "I saw everything." Then she added quietly, "I was there. I didn't think anyone noticed me. I hadn't. On Christmas Eve I barely registered she'd even come by. I remembered a quick wave and her dropping off cookies before heading out again. What I didn't know was that she'd hung around long enough to see the entire thing unfold. She told me she was standing by the hallway during the gift exchange halfway behind the coat rack, trying to get her gloves from the closet when it all started. She saw Savannah hand my dad the drawing. Saw him fold it in half and act like it meant nothing. Saw the way Savannah waited for a present that never came. And she saw me leave with her. She didn't say anything then because, in her words, it wasn't my fight. Then she paused. Looked at me like she'd been carrying the weight of it for 2 weeks. And now I wish I had made it mine. She opened the grocery bag and pulled out 2 wrapped boxes. One with shiny gold paper and a silver bow. The other wrapped in comic strip paper with a candy cane ribbon. One said to Savannah from Aunt Janice. The other said to Sheila from someone who knows you're not the crazy one. He smiled when I read the tag. Then she asked if she could sit for a while. I nodded and made us both tea while Savannah peeked from the hallway, then ran up and hugged Janice like she'd known she was coming all along. We sat on the porch, wrapped in old throw blankets while the sun dipped low behind the neighbor's fence. He told me more. More than I was ready for, honestly. She said my dad had been talking about Savannah for months. Not just once or twice but repeatedly. How she was too dramatic, too loud, too needy. How he wanted to make sure she didn't end up like her mother. I laughed a little. Because of course, it always came back to me. She said my mom didn't stop him. My sister laughed every time. And nobody told me. I asked her why. She looked out across the yard and said, honestly, because everyone's afraid of your dad. Even now. It was strange to hear that. That the man who barely moved from his recliner, who hadn't worked in a decade, who always pretended to be the smartest one in the room, was somehow still feared. And maybe that was part of it. Maybe we'd all been trained to tiptoe around him. But I wasn't doing that anymore. Before she left, Janice handed Savannah her gift and told her it was from Santa's backup team. She leaned down and whispered something in her ear. Savannah laughed and hugged her so tight Janice actually staggered a little. Then she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You did the right thing, kid. Even if it doesn't feel like it yet." When they were gone, I sat in the living room in the kind of silence you can't buy. Savannah fell asleep on the couch with the gold box still half wrapped in her lap. I sat there and just listened to the quiet. And for a moment I let myself believe it was over. No more guilt. No more manipulation. No more gaslighting. Then just as I was cleaning up the mugs from the porch I saw it. My dad. Standing in the driveway. No car. No coat. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at the house like he had something to prove. I didn't go out right away. I watched him for a few minutes through the blinds. And when I did open the door I didn't ask what he wanted. I already knew. He didn't walk up to the door. Just stood in the driveway, hands shoved in the pockets of that old gray sweater he always wore when he wanted people to think he was harmless. No jacket. No bag. Just him, as if showing up empty-handed made it easier to pretend the past 2 weeks didn't happen. I opened the door but didn't step outside. Just leaned against the frame and waited. He stood there for a full minute without speaking, then finally said, "I figured you'd cool off by now." I didn't answer. The wind blew between us, hard and sharp. He barely blinked. He stepped forward once, maybe 2 steps closer, and stopped again. "I'm here to talk," he said, like we were equals meeting halfway on a disagreement instead of a father who had deliberately humiliated a child. He still wasn't going to apologize. I saw it on his face. He was here to manage things. To pull strings the way he always had, twisting words, rewriting the facts until I was somehow the over-emotional one. He started with the house. Said he'd taken good care of it. That he'd spent time keeping it up. That it wasn't fair to throw away everything we've built because of one incident. He never even said Savannah's name. I reminded him the house was mine. That no one built anything together. I handed them the keys out of generosity, and they used that as leverage until they couldn't anymore. He still wouldn't stop. Said, "You're really going to destroy the family over a 4-year-old's outburst?" That's when I said it. She didn't have an outburst. She had feelings. And you punished her for them. He scoffed. She's 4, Sheila. She won't even remember it. I stepped out then, finally, just far enough to look him in the eye. She'll remember feeling unwanted. And I'll remember everything. That stopped him for a second. His mouth opened like he was about to argue, but nothing came out. Then he tried to pivot. "This is about you. It's always been about you. You're still bitter I never." I cut him off. "You made my daughter cry for no reason. You stood in front of her and told her she was too bad to be loved. You burned her drawing. You invited every single person to celebrate Christmas around her like she wasn't even there. Then you came back to finish the job on my porch." He blinked hard. Looked down for a second like he needed to reset. Then said, "You've always been dramatic. This is what you wanted, isn't it?" I told him the truth. I didn't want this. I wanted a dad. I wanted a mom. I wanted a sister who didn't take cheap shots and then hide behind the word family when things fell apart. I wanted someone to protect Savannah when I couldn't. Someone to sit beside her on Christmas morning and say, "You matter." He said. I got silence. And then I said it. "You are not welcome here. Not now. Not ever again." He opened his mouth like he still had something clever to say. But I think he saw in my face that I was done playing the game. There wasn't a single door left open. No loophole. No guilt he could tap into. He turned and walked away. No words. No fight. Just a quiet, stubborn walk down the driveway like nothing had changed, but everything had. I watched him until he disappeared around the corner. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and sat down on the floor beside it. I didn't cry. I didn't feel proud either. I just felt finished. Later that night, Savannah crawled into my lap with one of the little snow globes Janice gave her. We shook it together, watched the glitter fall, and she said, "Santa knew I was good, right?" I said, "He always knew." And so did I. That night, I posted a short message online. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet thank you to the people who'd shown kindness when we needed it. A neighbor dropped off a small gift bag the next day. A stuffed polar bear and a note that said, "For the girl who deserved better." More followed. One of the moms from preschool brought cookies. Another dropped off a card that simply said, "We saw." Remember. My aunt came by again later that week. This time with a board game and 2 slices of pie. We played at the kitchen table, Savannah insisting she read the instructions. When she fell asleep later on the couch, Janice looked at me and said, "You broke a cycle, Sheila. That's bigger than people think. The house is quieter now. Not just in sound but in spirit. And for the first time in a long, long time, the quiet actually feels good."